Say, folks, what is it about the big Canadian banks when it comes to their weird code of conduct rules for their employees, and if you can believe it, code of conduct rules for their customers as well? Perhaps the worst offender is the Bank of Nova Scotia, aka Scotiabank. For example, as we reported last week, if you have the temerity to offer an opinion that goes against the uber woke mindset of Scotiabank, well, you can expect to be debanked. This is not conjecture. Gary Duke of Grand Prairie, Alberta, was debanked from his local Scotiabank back in August 2022. Gary's thought crime? Well, he simply asked when the rainbow-colored Scotiabank logo would revert to the normal red and white logo, given that Pride Month was over. Well, you can't even dare ask such questions, and so it was. Gary was debanked. And then, last summer, we met up with senior citizen Jane. She was fired as a client from her West End Toronto Scotiabank merely for suggesting that the bank's DEI policy should include senior citizens. Uh-oh, apparently you can't make a suggestion like that either, even though the rationale completely eludes me. And like Gary, Jane was debanked. Oh, and never forget nor forgive what Scotiabank did in February 2022. That's when Scotiabank, along with the rest of Canada's big banks and credit unions, did not hesitate for one single nanosecond when it came to freezing the bank accounts of thousands of Canadians for making inappropriate donations, i.e. giving money to the Freedom Convoy.
A bank or other financial service provider will be able to immediately freeze or suspend an account without a court order.
So your account, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was a CMA under the Measures Act. They required financial institutions to suspend financial services for accounts with large crowdfunding going through towards the protest.
And who is they?
This is the federal government. So Premier Justin Trudeau put out an announcement on Monday. I'd encourage you to look into it. But your account was caught up in that Measures Act announcement.
So you guys have not only frozen my account, but suspended my account?
Well, frozen the account for now. I mean, we're working on this as well.
Came down here with the Freedom Convoy here in Parliament Hill, Ottawa, and my bank account has gone.
Say, aside from Bobby Helms, does anyone else out there pine for the return of Fraulein Freeland?
Where I loved her and left her, but I can't forget her. I miss my pretty Fraulein.
But get this, while Scotiabank was proclaiming to take the high road on everything from opinions to donations as it debanked customers or froze their bank accounts, in the meantime, Scotiabank turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to senior executive Rayan Malak. Malak was using social media to espouse vile anti-Semitic rhetoric. Here, check it out. There is a gentleman that works here by the name of Rayan Malak. He is the Senior Credit Structuring Manager with Scotiabank. And guess what? This man is obsessed with denialism and Jew hatred. And yes, we have the proof in his own words, taken from social media postings. For example, that Toronto synagogue I mentioned that's been vandalized 10 times in 18 months, he says it's a false flag done by Jews and that they, quote, play victim all the time, end quote. Malak also believes that there is a, quote, Jewish lobby that makes you wonder who really runs things, end quote. Malak also states that Jews complain about, quote, how shitty they are, end quote. Oh, it just goes on. And here is something that tells you how much of a reprobate this guy is. Here's what he said in a post referencing a Holocaust survivor meeting the mother of a hostage from the October 7th, 2023 massacre in Israel. He said, quote, "Jewish propaganda is unmatched," end quote. It's unbelievable. Malak also goes on to state all kinds of crackpot conspiracy theories regarding so-called Jewish privilege, the action of classic Jews, his words, in terms of the war in the Middle East, and, quote, "Jews meddling in other countries' elections," end quote. It just goes on and on. But as odious as those statements are, here's where I think Malak crosses the line. It's his desire that meteors fall on Israel, killing its civilian population. And he also goes on to celebrate the October 7th massacre, which of course killed more Jews in one day than any other day since the Holocaust. This is just incredible. And what's really disturbing, folks, these weren't private postings uncovered. No, Mr. Malak was putting these postings out on social media for the entire world to see. So Scotiabank had an egregious anti-Semite on staff. They were fully aware of this, but they did nothing. Nothing, that is, until Rebel News exposed them. Because late last week, we learned from third-party sources that Malak had been terminated. So let's try to square this circle, shall we? Scotiabank is adamant that it is all about inclusivity. So by tolerating the hatred being spewed by Malak, including his perverse fantasy that Israeli citizens should die in a meteor shower, are we to assume that Scotiabank is being inclusive of Islamist doctrine? Because that's what it looks like to me. Is this conjecture on my part? Well, of course it is, folks. But that's because nobody at Scotiabank, from their useless media relations department to the bank CEO, will respond to my emails requesting comment. What's more, I dare say that had we not exposed Malak, he would still be gainfully employed at Scotiabank. Scotiabank wasn't concerned about doing the right thing. Rather, the bank didn't want to receive a PR black eye, even though it received a PR black eye nevertheless. Alas, while the Malak saga has played out, we have a story of yet another vile anti-Semite working at a different bank, that being the Royal Bank of Canada, aka RBC. By way of background, just like Scotiabank, RBC loves to embrace cancel culture. Oh, I do not exaggerate. Do you remember a few years back when RBC rejected the mortgage application that was submitted by Rebel News? And the rejection had absolutely nothing to do with our financial wherewithal, and it had everything to do with wrong thought? I kid you not, this story was so outrageous and egregious, it received international media coverage. Here, check it out.
Against someone for their political views is already legal in America. You can get kicked off of Twitter and Facebook for being a conservative. You can be banned from payment processing platforms like WePay and blocked from raising money on GoFundMe. You can even be removed from the internet like we saw with Parler. So what's the next step for political discrimination in this country? So if Canada is any indication of what's next, it's being denied mortgages for your political views.
It's just about the nature of the business altogether, because the bank has been, I'll be blunt with you, the bank has been, trying to pry away from certain, clients where they're kind of out there in the media and very strong opinionated, which is your business in a way. So we're just clearing some internal hurdles to make sure that the bank is okay to onboard you as a client internally.
Spoiler alert, we did not clear those hurdles, even though I've done all of my personal banking at that same Royal Bank branch for decades.
Despicable. Yet as RBC projects itself as some sort of moral authority, check out the hater who was on the RBC payroll, well, at least until Rebel News exposed the vile social media postings of RBC executive Zabi Joushan. These postings include the following. Mr. Joushan has called for the mass genocide of nearly 10 million Israelis by stating, quote, "We should blow up Israel," end quote, and, quote, "The world without Israel is a peaceful world," end quote. Mr. Joushan references Israelis praying in an underground parking lot on the Sabbath as, quote, "rats in their natural habitat," end quote, as Iran was firing ballistic missiles at civilian buildings. Mr. Joushan enjoys engaging with Israelis, calling for their murder, including an Israeli family hiding in a bomb shelter, telling them, quote, "You shall all be in hell soon," end quote, and, quote, "I hope one drops on your head," end quote, as he calls for the death of Michael Dixon. Mr. Joushan further states, quote, "They're squealing like pigs when the pig is about to be slaughtered," end quote, in reference to Israelis escaping bombardment by going into bomb shelters. Mr. Joushan has also called for the assassination of U.S. politician Brian Mast, saying he should have taken a bullet in his head instead of his legs being amputated from his body due to an IED explosion while in service. As well, Mr. Joushan believes fallen members of the terrorist group Hamas, quote, "went to heaven," end quote, after they died. Wow. How would you like that guy as your banker? In any event, I reached out to Jeff Lanthier at the Royal Bank's Media Relations Department. I asked the following queries. 1. Is the bank aware of Mr. Joushan's disturbing social media postings? 2. If so, what does RBC have to say about these postings? 3. Has Mr. Joushan breached RBC's code of conduct in terms of supporting murder and genocide? 4. I would welcome the opportunity to interview Mr. Joushan. Can you kindly pass along my coordinates to him? And unlike the cowards at Scotiabank's Media Relations Department, Mr. Lanthier did indeed get back to me, and I greatly appreciate that, by the way. And here was the statement he sent to me yesterday, quote, "We can confirm the individual is no longer employed with the bank. RBC stands against hate or unlawful discrimination, which are contrary to our values and our purpose. Reports of potential misconduct are taken seriously and investigated," end quote. So there you have it, folks. Perhaps due to the prospect of toxic publicity, another one bites the dust, and with good reason. Advocating harm and death and assassination and genocide is offside. My take, at the end of the day, Scotiabank and RBC did the right thing for the wrong reason. They jettisoned unhinged staffers for advocating death and destruction, but I think they only did so because the cat was out of the bag. These banks surely knew about these vile postings months ago, yet they chose to do absolutely nothing. Maybe they were crossing their fingers, hoping that nobody would notice. We noticed. Hey folks, I don't know about you, but after hearing calls for genocide for the past 2 years in Toronto and in so many other cities, are you fed up with it? And a lot of this vile rhetoric is coming from those who aren't even Canadian citizens. They're international students, they're temporary foreign workers. If you're coming to our country as a guest and advocating for genocide, guess what? You must go. Please go to our website, deporthamas.com. That's deporthamas.com. And if you feel like we do, put your name to that petition and tell these haters, if you don't live here, it's time for you to pack your bags and go.